Have you ever felt like the more clarity you gain, the more distant you become from others? Like every layer of truth, you peel back places you further outside the circle of connection? You're not imagining it. This isn't some personal flaw. It's something woven deep into human nature. Throughout history, those who saw more than others often found themselves walking alone, not because they chose isolation, but because society quietly edged them out. Why? Because truth, even when beautiful, can be deeply unsettling. The great minds of the past knew this all too well. From Hypatia to Kierkegaard, from Nietzsche to Simone Weil, those who dared to think beyond the ordinary often paid a price. Not because they lacked compassion, but because they challenged comfort zones. It's not that deep thinkers are dismissed because they're wrong. It's that they're dismissed because they disrupt the illusion, an illusion many depend on to function. But why does this happen? Why does seeing clearly push people away? To answer this, we need to look inside ourselves. Imagine standing next to someone physically powerful. You might admire them, even feel protected by them. Meet someone wealthy, and you might feel inspired or perhaps envious, but you don't question who you are. But encounter someone whose intellect cuts through pretense, who sees the cracks in every facade, and suddenly, something within you recoils. This is the paradox. You can admire muscles or money from a distance, but intellect? That confronts you directly. Psychologists call this cognitive threat. It's not about superiority, it's about reflection. A deep thinker reflects what we haven't yet faced in ourselves. They don't just share ideas, they mirror back our blind spots, and that can feel like judgment, even when no judgment is present. The discomfort isn't caused by arrogance. It's caused by contrast. Unlike strength or status, intelligence is entangled with identity. Our thoughts define who we are. So when someone questions our ideas, we don't feel corrected. We feel exposed. It's this exposure that makes intelligence socially risky. In most social settings, charisma is more valued than depth. Certainty is preferred over complexity, and confidence, regardless of its foundation, often overshadows nuance. The result? People who think deeply tend to feel unseen, or worse, unwelcome. You've probably experienced this. Maybe you've tried to bring up a philosophical question or share a profound observation, only to be met with polite nods and quick subject changes. It's not that people don't care, it's that they feel unequipped. They're protecting their mental space, the same way they might protect their personal space from intrusion. And here's the tragic irony. The people who could offer the most growth often end up silenced, not by force, but by social inertia. It's not just emotional, it's neurological. Modern neuroscience shows that when individuals feel intellectually outmatched, their brain activates the amygdala, the center for fear and threat response. In other words, we treat intellectual discomfort like danger. But why would intelligence, a trait we claim to admire, be perceived as a threat? The answer lies in evolution. For tens of thousands of years, human survival depended not on being brilliant, but on being accepted. Belonging to the tribe was safety. Rejection was death. And so our brains evolved to favor harmony over insight. People who rocked the boat, even if they were right, were a risk. And risks weren't rewarded, they were avoided. This ancient wiring still lingers today. When a deep thinker challenges the norm, it sends a signal: disruption. And disruption to the survival brain equals danger. It doesn't matter if the thinker is kind, open, or generous. Their ideas destabilize the group's cohesion, and the group instinctively pushes back. A fascinating 2021 study from MIT found that people are much more receptive to deep ideas in one-on-one conversations. But the moment others are watching, intellectual openness shrinks. Why? Because in groups, status takes center stage. No one wants to look uninformed, and when someone appears too insightful, others feel the need to defend their standing. The deep thinker becomes a social liability. That's why many intellectuals thrive in private dialogues, but feel out of place in crowds. Cognitive biases deepen the divide. The Dunning-Kruger effect shows us that those with less knowledge often overestimate what they know. Meanwhile, those who are more informed tend to second-guess themselves. This leads to friction. Those least equipped to understand complexity are often the most confident in dismissing it. Status quo bias kicks in as well. We're hardwired to prefer familiar ideas over complex truths. So when a deep thinker introduces something new, it's not received as wisdom, it's received as disturbance. And then there's the backfire effect. When confronted with evidence that contradicts their beliefs, people often double down rather than reconsider. So the deeper you think, the harder it becomes to communicate without resistance. Add social media to the equation, and the problem multiplies. In today's attention economy, what spreads fastest isn't depth, it's drama. Algorithms reward outrage, not insight. The loudest voices drown out the most thoughtful. The flashiest ideas get attention, while the most meaningful ones get buried. This creates a world where deep thinkers are heard less, not because their ideas lack value, but because they lack entertainment appeal. So what's the solution? Do we ask deep thinkers to become marketers, to dilute their insights for likes and shares? Or do we learn to recognize the quiet power of introspection in a world addicted to noise? The answer may lie in acceptance, not from society but from within. Schopenhauer, the brooding German philosopher, believed intelligence was not a blessing but a burden. He argued that to see the world clearly was to carry the weight of its absurdity. Most people, he said, are driven by the will to survive, seeking comfort, pleasure, and distraction. But the philosopher, the deep thinker, follows a different force, the will to truth. It's not an easy path. It rarely leads to applause, but it leads to something else: clarity, purpose, freedom. While others chase illusions, the thinker chases understanding, even when it hurts. And yes, this pursuit can be isolating. It can feel like wandering through a desert while others celebrate the mirage. But it also grants a kind of peace. The peace that comes from seeing the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. So if you feel disconnected, misunderstood, or even lonely in your thoughts, know this: you're not alone. You're just ahead. The world may resist your questions. It may ignore your insights. But that doesn't make them less true. It simply means you're navigating a path that few are willing to walk. And sometimes the loneliest paths are the ones that lead to the deepest truths.